Our reading this morning is from the Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the 12 disciples, "A disciple is not above the teacher, nor a slave above the master. It is enough for the disciple to be like the teacher, and the slave like the master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father, and even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I will also deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it." Hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people. Thanks be to God.
Good morning. I'd like to begin with 2 stories. The first is a fiction story, one that I wish I'd written. And the second is a story that's made remarkable because it's all too true, and I know because I was there. The first story is by Patrick McGraw, and I'll paraphrase or describe the events. A man returns home from a long day and enters his home only to be greeted by just an unbelievable smell. It's the stinkiest smell, just a horrible, horrible smell, and he can't, for the life of him, continue on with normal daily affairs. He has to get down to figuring out where is the smell, where is it coming from. He must investigate. So he does what anyone with a bad smell in the house would do. He starts sniffing. He sniffs under pillows. He sniffs behind curtains. He sniffs under desks, chairs. He sniffs everywhere in the kitchen, all over his home. And he can't find the smell. But it's getting worse and worse, this smell. Until finally he gets to the fireplace, and he sticks his head in the fireplace and he takes a sniff, and oh my gosh, he's getting closer. But he can't reach up to the source of the smell. So he actually crawls into the fireplace. He crawls in and he crawls up, and he gets halfway up, and then he gets stuck, and he's stuck in the fireplace. And that's when he realizes he is the smell. Story 2, the true story. Last spring, in a unique exercise, 8 New York City police officers and 8 civilians agreed to meet for once a week for 10 weeks. And they agreed that each night they would share a meal, they would play theater games, and then they would engage in some of the rawest, deeply real conversations concerning race and police brutality that one could ever imagine. The culmination of this work would result in a performance of a play created by the 16 people. The first night, after the first shared meal and after some getting to know each other theater games, the facilitator, one of them, asked, "What are we doing here?" Officer Brian, a 17-year veteran from the NYPD, spoke right up, didn't even hesitate. He said, "This is a waste of time. Nothing is going to change. We are just 8 officers representing 36,000 men and women in uniform. And you all are 8 civilians representing the millions of people who live in New York City. And this is going to do no good, in my opinion. And this project can't be over soon enough." Well, I mean, it was just a dead silence. I mean, no one knew what to say. It's like, this is how we're going to start. But then Stephanie, a black woman about my age, raised her hand and was called on. And she said, "I hear you, Officer Brian, but I'm the mother of 5, and 3 of them are grown young men. And my sons tell me that I have no idea the terror and fear they feel every day they walk out the door. They live in fear that the police will profile, harass, arrest, and even possibly kill them." She said, "Still, I hear you, Officer Brian. I just don't have the luxury of your futility." The luxury of your futility. Those were powerful, powerful words. And I was blessed to hear them because I was one of the 8 civilians participating in the To Serve, Protect, and Defend project, the Irondale Theater Ensemble. Listening to Stephanie describe with tears in her eyes the fear and terror her grown black sons experience every day, I couldn't help but think I'm the father of a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, both young men. And I have, of course, worried that they might do something dumb over the years, something that might get them in trouble. But I have never, not for one day, ever worried that my white sons might be profiled, harassed, brutalized, possibly killed by the police. Not one day. I mean, parenting is hard enough, isn't it? But for Stephanie and millions of mothers and fathers of black, brown, and children of color, clearly there's a level of difficulty that I hadn't even begun to fathom. This was just a year ago. I was 56. And there it was right there. Stephanie bravely and intimately shared her story of racial injustice. And in so doing, it made it impossible for me to look away from my story. A story of privilege, advantage, comfort, of whiteness. 2 parents and the most uneven of playing fields. So, happy Father's Day. Oh, also, sincere apologies for my COVID hair. I mean, if there was ever an argument for expanding the idea of essential workers, my hair in New York, there's a real case. Anyway, my name is Peter Hedges. I'm better known as Father Bob Hedges' favorite middle son. My dad and my mother, Carol Hedges, and a small cadre of friends and individuals started a church that you may know a little bit about in 1956. They first met in a Masonic lodge. Yes, my dad was the founding rector of St. Timothy's, and for 26 years he served faithfully and to the best of his ability this parish. In his last 6 years, he was helped by my beloved stepmother, Laurel, mother of Suzanne Graham, who often sings solo and sings in the choir, and grandmother to Katie and Courtney. Now, I'm not a priest. I think that's already evident, and I'm not even going to pretend to be. But I have a long history from the early days of St. Timothy's, and I've been asked to share a few thoughts today. My dad baptized me at St. Tim's a month after I was born in the first sanctuary, which is the old parish hall. It's now been beautifully remodeled. But picture that, 1962, my dad baptizing me. It's a source of pride that, for me at least, in my father's 58-year ministry, according to him, the only time he lost control of his emotions in a weepy way was when he baptized me, his third child. And maybe because he'd already baptized my older brother and sister and he thought he had this one. And I think also probably because he had buried his own father a few months earlier. Well, for whatever reasons, maybe it was just the incredible handsomeness of me. I went off script, I just made that up. Anyway, he lost it. He just cried like a baby, like the baby I was. And I've always wanted to believe that the tears from his eyes fell into mine, maybe giving me my secret superpower, my embarrassing propensity to cry. Anyway, parents are often our first gods, and my dad, well, if he wasn't my first god, he was certainly my first hero. And I have just tons of memories of St. Tim's, and I had hoped to spend my time when I agreed to speak today, telling you a series of remarkable, inspiring stories about how my dad impacted me because of the events that are, well, are rocking and ripping apart and igniting our people all over the country. I don't feel that this is the time to tell those stories. But I will say, I remember the day the pews arrived, at least I believe I do. And I certainly remember when they hung the cross, because it was the first magic moment to have that cross just hanging there. And for those of you who haven't ever attended St. Tim's in person, there's a remarkable cross that hangs, it almost appears to be floating because the wires are so thin and so hard to see. Anyway, as one of the 4 kids competing for the attention and love of an overstretched single parent, I was not the brightest of the Hedges kids, but I outsmarted my siblings in one particular way. I knew that if I got up really early, I could have some private time with my dad, which I did. And I often got up early. I got up so early. And particularly on Sundays, that was special because we had the big peach section in the Des Moines Register, and I would read the paper, and we would talk politics and life, and he would tell me stories of his life, and I would tell him my dreams. And then at some point, he would go downstairs where he had already handwritten his sermon notes, and I could hear him type them for the sermon that he would be giving that day. And the sound of typewriter is one of my favorite sounds, and largely because I associate it with my dad getting ready to preach. Anyway, I wish he was here. I wish he was here in the physical realm. He passed 6 years ago, but I wish he was here because, well, first he would have been invited to give the homily, and he would have done a bang-up job. But second, I would like more than anything to be able to pick up the phone or Zoom, even better, which he would have loved because he could see me and all of his kids. And I wish I could pick up the phone and talk with him about this particular moment because it is so fraught and so much is being torn apart, but something also appears to be breaking through. And I would love to ask him his thoughts, and I would like for him to hear mine. I would like to interrogate him the way my kids are interrogating me, because the young people today are really rising up and they're asking hard questions of us. And I would like to ask those same hard questions of him. Anyway, I wish more than anything I could speak with him, because he would also have insights, and we could talk about just a myriad of things. I could share stories of my regrets, of moments I missed, where I wasn't paying attention, where I had opportunities to see beyond the limitations of my very white world, and I could also learn what he learned and what he wished he'd learned. So I just looked at the timer and I see I'm already at 12 minutes and I have so much more I would want to say. I think what I'm going to do, if it's okay, is I'm going to talk about, those are my dogs. I can't control them, so you'll hear them. Anyway, I wanted to talk about what are we going to do? We have such an opportunity right now to look hard at ourselves, to consider that there is a great stink, and that we, and I'm speaking to my white brothers and sisters, we may be the stink, not individually. I'm sure you're a great person and you're kind and you're not overtly racist, and I don't believe I am, but how do we own that there's a culture of white supremacy, that even if we are the best intended Christians and doing the best we can to individually treat everyone with care and love, we are a part of and have benefited from a system that has oppressed a large number of people for hundreds of years. We have a great amount of work to do. So what steps can we take? And I'm going to suggest two. And one, it's right in front of you, and I'm going to join in on Wednesday. I know because last week it was announced, a book group is being formed by the church. They're going to look at a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Dr. Kendi is one of the great writers about race, he wrote Stamped from the Beginning, which is the definitive history of racist thought in America, and How to Be Anti-Racist. He's also a cancer survivor, and a lot of how he talks about how we can cure the body politic of the racism that is in us. He uses a lot of how we treat cancer, and that we need to flood the body politic with the antibodies of anti-racism. He's a brilliant writer and thinker, and that this book is being tackled by St. Tim's is thrilling, and it's a great opportunity for us to get into a space and tell the stories of our lives and look hard at who we are and how we move and how we've moved through this racial oppressive time that we have all lived in, and many of us have benefited from. We've also been harmed by it, and his book and his writings help shine a light on that. So I think that's super exciting. I urge everybody to come on out. Let's do this. I'm going to be Zooming in. I'm very excited. And the second thing, and fortunately, I've hit my limit. I'm at 15 minutes. So I'm going to just, that's just going to free me from the little Bible breakdown I was going to do of today's reading. This reading, that it would be on Father's Day, where we're told whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. I mean, this bothered me the first time I heard it when I was a kid, because I thought, wait a minute, I can't love mom and dad, and if I ever have kids, I can't love my kids. And of course I was young and I didn't understand, and that's not what Jesus is saying here. Jesus is giving a very tough talk to the disciples, saying you are entering a hard time, and here's the deal. He's not saying don't love mom and dad, and thank God he's not saying to me don't love my kids, because I can't imagine a greater love. But what he is asking, he's saying love me more, love God more. Because if we love God most, we truly love God most, we won't be able to keep perpetuating systems of oppression, because every human being we will value. We will value people of different ethnicities, from different religions, different cultures, people who don't look like us, people who don't have our same last name. Because if we love God most, we will have the best chance of living a life of love, life of service. And maybe if enough of us can live that way, and enough of us can look hard and try to rid ourselves of whatever stink that we've been carrying unknowingly, perpetuating, if we can do these things, maybe we can move forward into a better, more loving, more just world. you've heard enough from me. Thanks. Hope to see you soon in person. Until then, be well.